According to EU data, Spain has the highest rate of youth unemployment in the European Union. The country already had alarmingly high rates of youth unemployment, but the coronavirus pandemic has only served to exacerbate these figures. According to Eurostat, the European Union Statistical Office, youth unemployment in Spain is 41.7%, which is 10% higher than in Italy, another country hard hit by the pandemic. The situation was already critical prior to COVID-19. No other EU country has such a high proportion of temporary workers, and job security is uncommon among the younger generations. Young people are not the only ones who have been impacted, but they have received the most severe impact in a shorter period of time, and at a time when it has the potential to seriously harm their professional careers. Spain requires not only more funds but also funds that are more targeted. I believe the country must be very strategic in determining which sectors will help it achieve economic recovery. They must support industries such as innovation, digitization, and the green economy. Experts, on the other hand, advise investing in new digital skills training. For a decade, the Spanish economy ramped up like a high-speed train until it abruptly slowed in 2008. It has only recently emerged from a lengthy recession. However, the unemployment rate as of 2021 is 15.7%, 3.5 times that of the United States, and the future does not appear promising. In this video, we will look at 5 reasons why Spain has historically had one of the highest unemployment rates among the world's most advanced countries. But before we go any further, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The economic model was excessively based on the shaky foundations of bricks and mortar. Between 2000 and 2009, Spain accounted for approximately 30% of all new homes built in the European Union, despite the fact that its economy only generated approximately 10% of the EU's total GDP. In just 1 year, 2006, the number of housing built exceeded that of Germany, France, and Italy combined. After Spain joined the Eurozone in 1999, interest rates were low, property was seen as a good investment in a country with very high home ownership, 85%, and there was a high foreign demand for holiday and retirement homes due to the 60 million tourists who visited Spain each year. When the housing bubble burst, jobs were lost as quickly as they were created. Because construction is a labor-intensive industry, its collapse reverberated throughout the economy. Between 2002 and 2007, the total number of workers, many of whom were on temporary contracts, increased by 4.1 million, a much steeper increase than in any other EU country, and more than 3 times higher than in the previous 16 years. During the 2008 crisis, more than 3 million jobs were lost, around half of them in the construction and related sectors. Labor market laws were too rigid. Spain's labor market is dysfunctional. Even at the height of the economic boom in 2007, the unemployment rate was 8%, a high rate by US standards. Spain's labor market laws were very flexible when it came to hiring, due primarily to the widespread use and abuse of temporary contracts, but when it came to firing, severance pay was higher than in comparable countries. This made employers reluctant to put workers on permanent contracts. The reforms approved in 2012 by the conservative government of the Popular Party, which returned to power at the end of 2011, lowered dismissal costs and gave companies the upper hand, depending on their financial health, in collective wage bargaining agreements between management and unions. The reforms have yet to have a discernible impact on job creation. The property sector caused a banking crisis and corruption to flourish. The 45 regionally based and unlisted savings banks that accounted for roughly half of Spain's financial system were closely linked to politicians and businesspeople. Many of them made risky loans to developers and were heavily exposed to the real estate market when it crashed. The reclassification of land for building purposes, as well as the granting of building permits in the hands of local authorities, created an environment conducive to corruption. Bad loans increased from 0.7% of total credit in 2007 to more than 13% in 2012. In exchange for sweeping reforms, the European Stability Mechanism bailed out some banks in 2012 with a €41 billion bailout package. With significant job losses, the number of savings banks has been reduced to 7. Spain exited the bailout program in January 2014. In 2020, Spain was ranked 32nd out of 180 countries in the latest corruption perceptions ranking by the Berlin-based Transparency International, down 2 places from the year before. Its score of 59 in 2013 was 6 points lower than its previous score in 2012, in a numerical index where the cleanest countries are those closest to a score of 100. During this period, Spain lost more points than almost every other country, topped only by war-torn Syria. The education system is in crisis. The education system is obstructing the creation of a more sustainable economic model. Early school leavers account for 1 in every 4 people in Spain between the ages of 18 and 24, which is double the European Union average, but down from a peak of 1/3 during the economic boom. When students dropped out at 16 and flocked in droves to work in construction and related sectors, almost a quarter of 15 to 29-year-olds are not enrolled in school, training, or employment. The results of the OECD's PISA international tests in reading, mathematics, and scientific knowledge for 15-year-old students, as well as the TIMSS and PIRLS tests for 4th grade children, are also poor. No Spanish university is among the world's top 100 in the main academic rankings. Spending on research, development, and innovation, at 1.5% of GDP, is far below that of other developed economies. In these circumstances, building a more knowledge-based economy is a pipe dream, and the brightest young scientists and engineers are fleeing. Spain received more immigrants in a decade than any other European country. When the Spanish economy began to expand rapidly, immigrants were drawn to the country. Their population increased from more than 900,000 in 1995 to 5.7 million in 2012, the fastest increase in any European country. They were especially needed in the construction and agricultural sectors, where there were not enough Spaniards willing to work. At the height of the boom in 2007, more than half of Spain's 3.3 million non-EU immigrants worked in the construction industry. When the economy entered a slump, immigrants bore a disproportionate share of the increase in unemployment, as many of them were on temporary contracts and were among the first to lose their jobs. The unemployment rate among immigrants, 37%, is significantly higher than that of Spaniards, 24%. Immigrants only began to return to their countries in significant numbers in 2012 and Spain's population declined by 400,000 in 2013, an unprecedented fall in the country's modern history. But with the events of the Syrian war and the US regime change in Libya, Spain experienced an unprecedented migrant flow coming from North Africa and the Middle East, which put pressure on the Spanish economy. Spanish high unemployment rate is a particular concern for the overall economy of the Eurozone, thus recently there have been several policy initiatives in Europe defending the idea of eliminating the employment practices liability gap through the introduction of a single labor contract. All these proposals highlight the negative effects induced by the permanent temporary contract divide. As a result, they all advocate the elimination of most temporary contracts and the introduction of a single labor contract with severance pay that is increasing with seniority in the job.